for a very specific reason. So I want to go ahead and work on history, archive, and snapshot today, building triggers. And basically what we have, because we're going to do this from the database, we're not going to use information schema because there are some tables that are not ready to have this interface or this archive history, stuff like that, especially the date dimension, since it's complicated and I haven't set up the tools yet to do this. But the overall concept is we have a table and then we have specific DML actions. We have an update, a delete, and an insert. And if you can see system, we have our MASH databases, basically an archive, a history, and a snapshot. So when we update, we want to make sure that the snapshot and history tables are modified. When we delete, snapshot, history, and archive, and when we insert, it's snapshot and history. So we're going to put triggers on these tables to make sure that every time we do something in anything, these MASH tables will, or the ASH tables will get updated appropriately, because each of these function differently. A snapshot will only have the most recent modification for a specific record based on the ID. So if we update a record and it doesn't exist in that snapshot, we're going to insert into the snapshot, but if it does exist, we're going to update that snapshot. For history, it's the opposite. It's really time-based, where if it's inserted, update, or delete, it doesn't matter. It's going to be in there. So we can track how that data changes. And finally, for archive, it's only on delete. And this is so, we can understand what's happening here. Say this is when it's deleted, but if we specifically want to see what is deleted or what has been deleted, it's the archive table that's going to let us know. So this is all in preparation to hooking up the APIs and actually downloading stock information to analyze. I needed date dimensions for not just these tables, but to actually associate a date ID with the different ticker prices and everything, because with the date dimension, I can split it however I want. I can add holidays in there and be able to see, the fluctuation of price based on holidays or based on date ranges. I can add COVID, the pandemic, in there when it started and monitor how it changes and how we leave recessions, etc. It's just a date sequence, a date range. So I want to go ahead and today get these set up. There's a very important piece that I need to do, is that when we look at our databases, we have a main and then the archive, snapshot, and history version of those databases. And each of these tables have their select, insert, update, delete views. So I got to make sure that all of these database views have synonyms in the main. And I think I have that set up. So I'm going to go ahead and run a procedure just to make sure that that is set up. And yeah, then I'll start building the triggers for each of these thingies. So that's what I'll be working on today. All right. So I believe it's set up synonyms for required databases, and this will go through and look at the database. So I do need database name and an object. Awesome. not drawing, I can get that off. So I want to see, my JSON will be, we need dynamic SQL. And we work in the payload. Database ID equals the data set database ID. So I will have all of these set up. Let's see what the database ID is in. Actually, it doesn't really matter, because I believe how my relationships are set up is that if I send it a main table or a main object, it's going to make sure the synonym is in interface. And if I send it an archive object, it's going to make sure that the table is in the main version. That's what I have set up from a previous video. So actually, I want to say the dataset type ID is our views. Data set, and I always forget tree plot. Make sure it's not split. It's one of those things where I really like working with not base. Come on now. Oh, the class. Got it. I really like working with hierarchical or classification data, because we can do these things where I don't have to, oh, and left or right 4 does not equal base, and it's not in the template, or blah, blah, blah. We really have this easier way, legible way of creating this stuff. So deletes, let's see if inserts, shots, updates. Awesome. So that should work. My database name and my object name. So I can make this a cursor. I should make one of those real quick. Declare cursor name, cursor local fast forward for open. Use these so much that fetch next from. I want to create a snippet of it. So I know I'll need 2 different flavors. Create this first. Fast forward. And static. Static for this? I do not think so. Data set. So I will need the database name and the object name, essentially. I can just make this a little bit more readable. These are the objects I want. And object name is first, database name is second. Works. All right, set the payload. And execute. Puts right now. Okay, so that should work. I want to go ahead and test it once. Let's get a top one. If I get any errors, I did not. So let's, I don't know. 3,600 synonyms. Jeez. Oh. Schema changed after it was declared. Okay. So I was talking about, so I hate how sometimes what it is, forward only, because, oh, yeah, because I am using synonyms. Damn it, I should have caught that. So that'll help me avoid that. It was just processing one of these 2 views and then failed out. It's 3,600 synonyms. What I should see is in the database or the main should have synonyms. Oh, and I do for history, archive. It's history, yep. snapshot, archive, history, delete. Awesome. So this is going to help us. They're in here, then they're everywhere. 4 seconds, 3600. Boom. What do you think? That should be saved. This is a pretty good tool. I'm going to go create a new procedure for this. Put it underneath the synonyms. So system object creation synonym all views. Steal that. The inputs aren't going to really matter. Except I have to change this because payload is going to be on the input. That payload's not going to matter. But I can actually bubble up any errors I want. Sweet. So that'll be a nice tool to have, just to go through all of our all of our databases and make sure all the synonyms are wherever they should be, all the main synonyms are there, all the archive snapshot synonyms are on the main, etc. So sweet. So now that I have that, let's take this one step at a time. History is going to be the most important thing. So I'll go ahead and remove this. Open up a history table. So we have to think of what do we want to happen when we find a definition, because we want to control this. We don't want to say always record history. There may be a time where we don't. Who knows? Not just on a not recording history, but on a specific table. Maybe we don't care about recording history on, I don't know, the database and dataset tables or most of system main. It's whatever we want to choose, and that's the important part, is choice. Being able to do this without modifying the trigger. So what we want to do is, when we look at the trigger, is kind of break it out into parts. So what's going to happen after something happens, after an insert happens, an update or a delete happens, we will have access to the insert and deleted tables, which is important because in an update, this is new and this is old data. So we have to figure out, what do we want? Do we want the old data or the new data? And we're going to take the new data. We're going to take the old data, deleted. So when we insert something, we'll look at the insert table, get the data, and send it forward. When we update something, same thing. We don't care about what's deleted. And when we delete something, we don't have the inserted object. We only have the deleted object. This is just something that SQL provides. So this will be our primary trigger after something. We will name it after what we are doing, whether it's history, snapshot, or archive. And then what we want to do is, for most of these, we want to get the date ID. Now that we have that date dimension, we can actually get an ID. This will help us track usage based on holidays and times, not time, but holidays and all that stuff. So, and then we want to get the definition. And this definition is based on the table, or let's do it on, I think we should do it on subject. Very interesting. We all want to not, yeah, I think I'm going to do it on subject. That makes more sense to me. So the subject being, if we don't want to log any group stuff, we can turn off group. But that's not granular enough for me. Go to set. There's too much in group. We might want to just turn off events, because events are, technically, you don't want to record history on events. We'll get our date ID, we'll get the definition, and if we're good to go, then we will query these tables and send the data to its appropriate area. So that's basically it. That's a pretty slim process. Not a lot of crazy stuff going on. Can actually probably move this, get date ID down, get the definition first, and then get the information that we need. So that is pretty simple. Well, let's see. Let's create like to do this. This helps us get started. Our basic setup. So want is dbo.trg. Trees don't have. Come on now. Looks like I need to run another procedure to make sure that I have these up like they are right now. Awesome. Not awesome in a good way. So okay, let's do that. Based on the dataset ID itself. Yep, make sure. Awesome. Okay, so learn my mistakes. Dataset cursor static. Essentially dataset ID. So because I have a check right here, I can just take that. In data. Oh, I hit Control X. Dang it. That slips sometimes. Okay. So select insert update delete, and it's the view. How many do I get back? Get it. 3,600 again. And let's get JSON. Set the payload equals and one test. Analysis binary delete. Analysis binary. Awesome. Can create our 3,600 triggers in 10 seconds? 6 seconds. All right. Probably would have been less if I took off the prints. See that many. Okay, let's just double check. Create. Update, delete. Awesome, awesome. Should work. Oh, wait. No, I want to make sure that it hit history. And it did. Sweet. So this will be essentially our name. You can do the same thing. Really care about this slide. Care about this. So if we look at the name, it's going to be on the table itself. So if we think from the table perspective, I'm going to cut this and paste it down here. You have a data set name and then the type of view. So let's say we'll do record history. So then we'll have record archive and record snapshot. So let's say name, and then to know what is it on, should be the dataset name. Need to know where it's being executed. So we will need the database name. And because I'm confident that SQL is going to yell at me, we will do a drop if exists. So drop trigger. Name. Because add that in a little bit. SQL yells at me sometimes, says, hey, this has to be the first statement in the batch. And well, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. like views do. I don't remember if triggers do, so I'm just going to program it like this, drop it, and then create it. No easier way. Why see if it already exists when you might have to change the definition anyways? Just run it when you need to run it. So for history, it's going to be essentially all of these. So after insert, delete, and update, what do we have to do? So first, we declare this way, so I have access to IntelliSense. So we're going to declare a JSON row, and this row is going to be the JSON representation of what just happened, whether it's insert or delete. We need a date ID, and for history, I think we need a lot more. Might need all three of the dates. Yep. So we're going to work and get UTC. And then after we capture that data, we're going to convert it to a date. This is going to be interesting because my date exists in main. I will need a way a function that will exist as a synonym everywhere else, which is unfortunate. Like the cross synonyms. And the other way to dynamically generate database name. Yeah. I think I will do cat thrown up. That's awesome. I'll create a function in the interface database that will get my date ID for a specific date. And I don't normally like to program like this, but you know, what's the choice? If something changes, I can regenerate all of my triggers and this will update. But it beats trying to force a single function into many databases. This is a lot less invasive because I do want to keep my views on the database themselves so I can materialize them. That's the important part. I don't want to say, oh, insert update select. They're all on interface main. You don't need an S for a synonym, just crazy stuff. But anyways, get my date information. I want to make sure I get a definition ID. I'm in a definition key name. So I can say do a statement, that'll be okay. Maybe I should stick with this. Do I make something very specific? Because, yes, I'll make something. Get flag for record hash. So dataset name, and in this case, it will be history. We'll say record flag instead, which means we don't need this. Get me a record flag, and this will allow me to do something. So I will want the JSON row. I have a split. So if action in update insert, then I will want JSON row because it's local to me. Else, if the action is delete, we will look at the deleted object. Now I have my record, history, insert is, after this it doesn't matter. Do synonym. It's a view of a table that mimics the dataset name, also has history insert. No. Oh, that. Want the history ID, we will want the tenant. D. Sequence. That doesn't really matter. Here, display order, trust it. That's how that's programmed. Let's see. Ref table, just to verify that's the pattern. Yep. That's actually gonna be pretty easy. So, group ID tenant, the primary key. I think that is it. So I'm going to declare 2 more variables. We're going to get tenant. Because we're inserting to the table itself, and get the JSON value from the JSON row at the location of sys group ID tenant, and we have to be case sensitive. So that works out very well. The primary key is a different story, but since we're using a tool to generate this data for us, we can get primary key is a modified version of the table name. Which is essentially the primary key. If I take off TBL, I'll just get ref binary type, this ref binary type, which also works into this ref binary, well, class. So that works here. But we need a name, no TBL. Another one. That's dataset name. -6. doing? It's okay. This will probably work. Key is hold it. JSON Row date ID date time action sequence display order. Going to trust the history and say that the history is active. Should be trigger. So now I just need two functions, but I need to go a little bit further, recording this stuff. So let's do that. So I want a new definition. See what I have for realms, naming, and system. I can say this is a system definition. What class, object, class, family, type. Let's do data set. Change management. Type. Be archive history snapshot. Yeah, that'll work. Set of object. Change management. The family. Will be history first. Record. Just type will be specific. Record what? Record archive. History. And snapshot. Oh. I'm gonna take this to Excel sheets. I should have grabbed both. when this definition is associated data set. There we go. So true, false. True, false. False. Instead. Bunch of copy pasta. And the reason why we're having a true and a false in here is we don't want to add and remove data a lot. I don't see the point to do that. What we want to do is say we have 3 states. The first state is there is a true definition. The second state is that there a false definition. And the final state is we don't have a definition. So that will allow us to say, if this is true, proceed, and then we can have, you know, some sort of inside of the function that we call to get the true or false flag. We have the option of going inside that function and saying, you know what, if you're not defined, go ahead and actually do what you're supposed to do. But if you are defined, you know, that's the flag I'm going to send forward. Or if I don't have a definition, don't record it. So we have the option within the function itself of making that choice. So pretty neat. Go. Sweet. So I need also create a relationship. Definition to data set. I have one. Definition. Do not. Data set definition. Nope. To other definition. The data sets to definitions. The data set to definition. Class. I hate this. I had a system failure. Windows were open. So SQL failed, and then SQL added a ton of rows. Thanks. 0, 1, 1. So data set to definition functional is functional. 10. Family object. Separate it. Change management. Change management actions. The aspect of the change management is recording data. So this is what this specific relationship means. Represents the recording of data, the appropriate archive. Try to stay away from abbreviations when I can. Archive, snapshot, or history tables. Should be able to get my chain. Awesome. Now I can create, well, let's fill that data up first. System relationship ID equals, oh no, I'm trying to do too many things at once. Awesome. That's what I will need. And we can reverse it. Let's say select dataset ID from set. And we want to make sure that we are looking at tables. Also in the main database, because that is extremely important. So tables 225. Let's verify dataset name system, and then we want to find like group and stuff like that. There we go, data. Alrighty, this will be our initial seed data. We can say ATBL relationship insert. Give me the data. Let me format this real quick. That works. Tenant. I'm gonna hard code. Actually, I can possibly do a teasy snapshot everything too. Yeah, that data sets as this, and I don't need the name anymore, but I do want the dataset specific dataset number. Boom. And then I will also want definitions. Select the definition ID and definition specific. On ref definition tree on definition I'm mocking my database in specific. Oh, there it is. Where patterns, right? Awesome. So I wanted, so I have my definition ID and my specific dataset number. So to fill this up, I should be able to say, give me the dataset ID, dataset specific number, specific first, parent, that, then that. Then I will want my definition ID, definition specific number. I know the tenant is going to be a 1, and the relationship should be type ID. I'm going to change that. Parents, child, sequence is irrelevant. Display order is irrelevant. 1 and 1 from data sets, definitions. That'll be all possible combinations of each data set, true flags on all the above, so we can change it later. 675 definition problems. That's the power with bam. Sets definition. Now, can essentially reverse this. Just take little pieces of the code we've written. From my thing, it looks like I want the dataset name and what I'm looking at. Because of my pattern, I can say declare at definition name. And the incoming would be dataset name. Action. Action is insert, update, delete. What would this be? My inputs. My inputs would be that. Get the relationship. Technically don't need the definition D or anything like that. I can say the definition key name is record space the record key name that's incoming space. We want to know if it's true or not. Then I can use that here. Yeah. That's what happens. Oh, and I misspelled that too. Awesome. That sucks. That. Go. That is going to be much better. So I want the definition type ID. Spell this correctly. I'm going to get the relationship, and I'm going to get the definition type ID for the system change management record and the incoming key name, because that's all that really matters. So if I say works, say history, this will come down here and grab it, and that can be a little more that should work. And I can do now. My system relationship. Boom. If exists, select top one from system relationship, where system relationship type ID and the parent primary key, that will be an in. Will be an in also. Yeah. Microsoft SQL, MySQL. So I don't have to use an exists. Select, do the set ID. Should I record data set? Yes. Should I record data set history? No. Excellent. So I'm going to set the record flag equals true, or if it doesn't exist, like history, that the record flag equals false, and then return the record flag. Naming it, bam, scalar and name parameters. That should do it. Wait. And the other one is simple enough. Where just needed to find the name of it. Be a date. We'll return an integer. It's a date ID. Simple. But it's one location in case I have to come in here and say, oh yeah, and I have multiple calendars, so now the type ID has to be under standard. I have this one simple location. I don't have to add interface in front of all these different tables and stuff like that. Oh, boom. Can just do that. So now I will put together my tokens. Back to creating this. Let me just create a token block. I will need the database name, the dataset name with table, base name, set name -6. Tokens. Awesome. Declare SQL. So my base, we plug this down. This will be this. Record history. I could probably. No, I can't, because each of these are going to be a little bit different. Snapshot and archive will not work. Only has work like this, so think about overloading it further, but it really doesn't matter. Right, so SQL is going to let me here place ones with twos. Then ones with twos again, because that gets crazy sometimes, but it is. Have this amazing thing. I can say select the execute is the base. Boom. That should do it. So database name, destination, database name, interface, the dataset name, the dataset ID. Be most of it. What's it? Can get the dataset ID from the incoming JSON. Set name. Dang. So I should have done too. Just that. Also. Probably not that much. But for sure, this one. Come on. Boom. So hopefully that works. That should be pretty simple. We will try it on something that we can just mess around with, which is beats me. What could I do? Do I have anything in group? I have the system. Why don't I do it on group realm? I have to add another tenant per se for my stocks data set. Dang it. Bro. To do is grab this stuff. Oop, I do. I'm fat fingering a lot of stuff today. All right. Lies. Prime A. Got it. What? I swear this is a thing, and it should not be yelling at me like that. Trying to look it up because I thought this is how I didn't think it was inserted dot action. Shouldn't be called. Microsoft SQL action. Why is it pink? Pink. Not 2, right? I don't think so. Just oh, like Googling $action, which is fantastic because I'm gonna ignore that. Pretty messed up. Boolean search. Column action. Oh. Deleted. That is messed up. Thought I had access to it outside of King. I do. Do not want to use merge at all. I'll put action, deleted product. That totally messes with my plans. So what? Guess instead of this approach to change my approach, because I as form chord insert insert our things books relevant. So that get that. Let's remain relevant. Now that sucks, but that is okay because again. Do it this way then. Change. Can say if the record history flag, blah blah blah, history flag. And I can repeat it. Say bam. history. This is insert, so it wouldn't matter. But it would for this. That will only be on delete. Okay. There. Procedure does not exist. Swore. It's different. So, to say tenant. Oh my god. Damn. Safe enough. Instead. Oh, TBL, TBL. We'll get there. Give me everything inserted. Want null values of this. Shouldn't be an array. Guess not. Let's see. If Group ID tenant. Let's do this for now. No, it's not pulling anything from that. Let's see what it is pulling. Oh. That is super bizarre. Oh, man. Siri. Does not make sense to me. One bit. This ref group realm ID. Well, okay, so that means I think at least it's got this. So TBL, so that would be ref. ID. Oh, no, it wouldn't, would it? It would just be that. Oh, the ID, damn it. Messing up my numbers. All right. Alrighty. That nonsense in there. Okay. Well, this caused a bunch of problems. Um, Alrighty. Actually, let's cause way more problems than that. Cut by stop here. Oh, can't help. I got it. Oh, snap. This kind of helps with keeping. That's right. Keeping separate. So I have an insert, update, and a delete. both because I want to see. Let's date. Go update and delete at the right time, right date ID, everything's good. Now we have multiple things. Let's update again. See if we get. I'll make sure I don't have any primary or unique index violations. I do multiple updates on the same ID. All right, now we have change tracking. Sweet. Well, kind of have change tracking. Now we have change tracking. Successfully. Tables, pick a random table. Yeah. Now I can go in and modify these procedures to add archive, at least archive, because snapshot's not really ready yet. I'll have to do that, but snapshot is kind of actually it's pretty cool because if I develop ingestion procedure for snapshot, then I can actually just give you my snapshot and say, hey, you're going from nothing to now. Well, here's the data. You're going from version 3 to 6. Well, then here's the data. Because it's a data-driven system, so that is really cool. It is about lunchtime. Thank you very much for watching. I'm going to continue on this stuff. I think I will get the set up and update my coffee pages. I have the unit of measure date and a spin up right now for this. And I think with the history, I do want to create one more database. I might come back later today or tomorrow. I want to create the other database, which is why we see the flags in here. saying that there's other information associated with this because I want to create a procedure to actually start pulling from the stock APIs and start ingesting. I wanted to get history set up and other set up because when I call the API, I want to save that JSON because it's a free API. And that's how we do it is when we have our queue fires something and it will create an event that says, hey, I fired this. And it'll get a response back. Now that response is going to be split apart using the component structure and put into the appropriate groups and all that stuff. Component structure put into appropriate groups. But if something messes up, I don't want to waste an API call since I'm on a free plan. So I need to save the response. And I think I might create another structure called response. But I'm not sure. I think I might want to. If I'm dealing a lot of pipelines automated, if I have a response back, then I would want to know what the response is and kind of metrics are associated with it. I don't know when I started call, what I got the call back, what size it is. Do I really care about that? I might. I don't know. So I'm gonna think on that for a minute and see how I want to handle that. However, I do want to associate either saying this response is an additional piece of information, an other piece of information, or actually create a structure to handle responses of API calls and other things. But yeah, thanks again, and I will see you next time.